So let's dive into a really fascinating theological argument. The big idea here is that for the church to remain a truly vital, living force, it can't just stand still. It has to be in this constant state of creative transformation. So let's get into it.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll set the scene and look at why the church is at a major crossroads. Then we'll get to the heart of it, this stark choice it faces. You either advance or you decay. After that, we'll look at a couple of really powerful ways this transformation can actually happen. And we'll wrap it all up by talking about why this journey, well, why it's never really finished.
Okay, so first up, let's tackle the big problem our source material lays out. Why is the modern church struggling so much to stay relevant? There's this really provocative idea that maybe, just maybe, it's kind of closed itself off from what it's supposed to be all about. And this is where it gets really interesting. The source just throws these huge questions out there, right? It's asking, where is the real church? You know, that living, breathing spirit. Is it only inside the buildings? Or is it actually more alive and kicking out in the world, outside of those walls?
Now, you might think this is just about numbers on a spreadsheet, fewer people in the pews. But it's actually much deeper than that. The argument is that the church is losing its most creative minds. We're talking about the artists, the scientists, the very people who are essential for keeping things fresh. And they're not leaving because they're angry. They're leaving because they're just bored. They feel like the church doesn't have anything important or vital to say anymore. Ouch.
So, we've got the problem on the table. Now, let's get to the core philosophical argument, the big idea that offers a way through all this. It's a really powerful principle.
Okay, the key idea here comes from the philosopher Alfred North Whitehead, and it's this. Standing still? It's not even a real option. It's an illusion. See, when any living thing, any institution just tries to repeat the past and ignore what's happening now, it's not actually standing still. It's decaying. It's literally losing its vitality, its life force.
And this quote, this is really the engine driving this entire explainer. Any movement must either advance or decay. There is no standing still. What that means is that change isn't some threat you have to manage. Nope. It's an absolute necessity for survival. The choice is stark. You either move forward and evolve, or you fade away. All right, so if you have to transform, how do you actually do it? Well, our first example is a big one. It's about completely rethinking the way we talk about and imagine God, specifically by looking at it through a feminist lens. The argument goes like this. For centuries, our images of God have been almost totally masculine, right? King, father, ruler. And the source says that this one-sided view really limits our understanding. It actually holds everyone back, both men and women, from seeing clearly and acting justly. And you can really see the shift here. On one side, you have that traditional Kaiser image of God, this distant, unchanging, all-powerful ruler who basically works by giving orders. But on the other side, there's this renewed image, one that comes out of something called process theology. Here, God is all about responsive love, tenderness, a God who actually shares in our suffering and works by persuasion, not by force.
Okay, so the next way to transform is, well, it's maybe even more radical. It involves having a real, deep, and open conversation with other major world religions. And the big example here is Buddhism.
And this isn't about arguing over who's right or trying to convert people. Not at all. It's about seeing dialogue as a massive opportunity for growth. I mean, think about it. Early Christianity was totally transformed by its encounter with Greek philosophy. The source suggests that engaging with Buddhism could be just as huge moment, maybe even bigger. Now, to really get this, we have to understand a key Buddhist concept called sunyata, or emptiness. And that word can be tricky. It doesn't mean that nothing exists. What it means is that nothing has a fixed, static, independent existence. Everything is connected. Everything is constantly changing. Everything is part of a process. So how on earth does that Buddhist idea help Christian thinking? Well, for starters, it directly challenges that old idea of God as some static, unchanging thing. Remember that Caesar image? Instead, it gives theologians a new language to talk about God as a creative, dynamic process that's woven into the very fabric of the world, not separate from it. And all of this brings us to the final and maybe most important point. This whole transformation thing, it doesn't have an end date. There's no finish line.
See, the goal here isn't to just swap out one set of rigid rules for another. No way. A true creative transformation is about staying open. It's about being okay with not having all the answers and realizing that the journey of becoming is never, ever over. We don't know what the final outcome will be, and that's exactly what makes it a living faith, not a dead one.
And this quote just sums it all up perfectly, doesn't it? A clash of doctrines is not a disaster, it is an opportunity. It means that when new ideas show up, when people disagree, when there are challenges, that's not a bad thing. It's an opportunity. It's how you get stronger, smarter, and closer to the truth. It's the fuel for transformation. So we'll leave you with this to chew on. Yeah, we've been talking about the church, but this idea is so much bigger, right? In a world that is constantly changing, all the time, how can any institution, any tradition, or even any one of us stay vital and alive without being willing to engage, to adapt, and to creatively transform?